Hello everyone, Happy New Year. My name is Edmund and I am the migration agent of Aussie Migration and Visa Professional Solutions. Today's information session will be focusing on the 491 visa, or the so-called Skilled Regional Provisional Visa. Now, this visa is valid for 5 years and has a pathway for permanent residency through the 191 visa. What's good to know about this 491 visa is that it has two streams, the state-by-state nomination stream and the family-sponsored stream. Now, I'll share my screen to discuss more of the details regarding this 491 visa. Now, as I mentioned, 491 visa is part of the general skilled visas, namely 189, 190, and yes, 491. Now, since this is part of the general skilled visas, this is a points-tested visa. And the difference with the 190 and the 491 is that 491 is for regional purposes, like the employer is living in the regional area or the eligible relative who is an Australian citizen is living in the regional area. Now, to start our discussion, let us know what are the locations that falls under the regional areas. Now, as you can see in the screen, if you live or your relative lives in Sydney, Brisbane, and Melbourne, then you will not be eligible for the 491 visa. Or your employer is in Sydney, Melbourne, or Brisbane, then you will not be eligible for the 491 visa. You may be eligible for the 190 visa. Now, there are two types of regional areas. One is the cities and major regional centers, and the other one is the region centers and other regional areas. Now, if you live or your relative is living in Perth, Adelaide, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, Canberra, and so on, now you will be eligible for the 491 visa. You have access to regional occupation lists, and if you are an international student studying post-study courses like master's or bachelor, then you will have an additional year. So this is an incentive if you study in these areas, Perth, Adelaide, Gold Coast. Now, if you study in outside these cities and major regional centers, then if you're an international student, then you will be eligible to access for additional 2 years on a post-study work visa. So that's the difference. If you're an international student and you study in these areas, you'll have 1 year. Outside of these cities and major regional centers, you will have 2 years. But take note that this only applies if you study bachelor or post bachelor degree courses like master's or either be coursework or research. Now, 491 visa, what are the general requirements? An applicant may be inside or outside Australia. If in Australia, the applicant must be a holder of a substantive visa or a student visa or training visa maybe, or a bridging visa such as A, B, and C. Second, an applicant must be invited by the minister in writing to apply for the visa and to have applied within the period in the invitation through Skills Select. As to the age, an applicant must not have turned 45 at the time of the invitation to apply for the visa and not at the time of the submission of the expression of interest. Now, these topics fall under the general skilled points test requirements. Now, before you may be eligible for 491, you must have met the requirements of having at least 65 points minimum for the points tested visa, state nominated stream. And once you have the minimum points of 65, then you can apply for expression of interest. And once you have been invited by the state, then you can apply for the visa. Now that is the procedure. First, be eligible to apply because you have minimum points of 65. Second, the state has sent you an email inviting you to apply for the 491 visa. And then third, that's the time you apply for the visa application with the Department of Home Affairs. Now, as to the age requirement, it states that the applicant must not have turned 45 at the time of invitation. Now, this means that at the time you receive an email or an acknowledgement from the state that they invite you for the state nomination stream, then you must be less than 45 years old, not at the time of the submission of expression of interest. Now, an applicant to nominate a skilled occupation that is specified by the minister in a legislative instrument. This refers to the occupation. So, meaning, not all occupations you can apply for the 491. It must be in the legislative instrument. And each state has its own rules regarding what occupation they want to publish for purposes of 491 visa. Second, and that is the skilled occupation that was specified in the invitation as a skilled occupation that the applicant may nominate. Applicants must also declare in the application that their skills have been assessed as suitable by the relevant assessing authority for the nominated occupation. And this is not the assessment for the 485 or the temporary graduate visa, because that's a provisional skills assessment. For 491 visa application, you must have the positive full skills assessment. So it means that you cannot just apply for 491 visa because you meet the 65 points minimum requirement. You must also have a positive full skills assessment. Now, skills assessment authority will depend on what occupation you belong. If you are from the IT, then you must go to ACS website to know if you're eligible for the full skills assessment. Or if you're nursing, then you can go to AFRA or NMBA. And if you're an engineer, then you can go to the website of Engineers Australia for you to be able to have a full skills assessment. Now, as I mentioned, there are two streams. Number one is the state nomination stream, and the second is the family-sponsored stream. Now, let's look into the differences between these two. State nomination stream, if you apply for this visa under the state nomination stream, automatically the state will give you 15 points. So, the other criteria for the points test is age, qualification, work experience, and your English test. You only need to have 50 points, and then you will be given automatically 15 points if you are eligible for the 491 visa. Meaning, if you are living in the regional area of a particular state, or if your employer is located in a particular state, then automatically you can have 15 points. And for purposes of nomination, 65 points is enough. However, for the family-sponsored stream, it's different. Applicant with the highest number of points will be prioritized in the application. So it's not the same with the state nomination stream. In family-sponsored stream, there is a tough competition. So if you scored higher than the others, then the chance of getting the invitation will be high as well. Now, as to a state occupation list, for the state nomination stream, the particular state or each state has its own occupation list. On the other hand, for the family-sponsored stream, that will not apply. The occupation list is that the same with the 189 visa. So this is a separate occupation list. You don't assess your occupation if it's in the state occupation list used for the state nomination stream, but you must look into the occupation list of the 189 visa. And another difference is that for the family-sponsored stream, you must have an eligible relative who is an Australian citizen or a permanent resident. And the requirement is that he must be at least 18 years old for him to able to sponsor you. And he must be residing in Australia for at least 2 years. Now, let's go to states. Now, for purposes of this discussion, our emphasis would be more on international students. Now, for Northern Territory, offshore applications remain closed and applications open for candidates who are already in the Northern Territory are and either have completed their studies as international students or are working full-time in the Northern Territory. So you can visit this website to know more about the occupation list for the Northern Territory. So there are two applications. One, international students studying in Northern Territory, and second, working full-time in the Northern Territory. For international students or international student graduates in Northern Territory, you can be eligible for 190, and if you are not eligible for 190, then you can apply for 491 nomination. So you will be eligible for 190 if you have completed one or more qualifications at Northern Territory-based institution for 2 years in a single tertiary course or a set of nested tertiary courses. Now, one good school in Northern Territory is Alana K College, and they offer so many courses. And one example of a set of nested tertiary courses would be Certificate 3 plus Diploma of Early Childhood. Second requirement, must have lived in the Northern Territory for a period of at least 6 continuous months immediately after holding a visa that allows full-time work. So this could be the temporary graduate visa after finishing student visa, and must have demonstrated genuine and sustained efforts to obtain employment from a Northern Territory employer in the nominated occupation or the skilled occupation list. If that international student cannot comply with the requirements for the 190, then they can apply for the 491. But take note that the main difference between 190 and 491 is the regional area. For Northern Territory, I think most of the area is regional. So this is the only requirement. You may be eligible for 491 if you cannot comply with the requirements for 190, such as the residence requirement and the course requirement that you must have studied for at least 2 years. Now, let's go to South Australia. State nomination applications for 2020 and 2021 reopened last 20th of July 2021, and there are 4 major pathways. First is the international graduate of South Australia. Second, currently working in South Australia. Third, offshore candidates that opened last September 28, 2021, and Talent and Innovators Program. Now, I have stated here the occupation list so that you may be able to see what occupations are in South Australia. For the international graduate stream, the South Australia graduate must be currently working in their nominated or closely related occupation for the last 3 months in South Australia. And that is after finishing his or her studies. Take note that not all occupations are available for this pathway, so you really need to look into the occupation list. And the South Australian course must be CRICOS registered with a minimum of 46 CRICOS weeks. So that's less than 1 year or 1 year. One academic year is 52 weeks. 92 weeks. This is 1 year, yes. A minimum of 50% of qualification must have been completed in South Australia, must have resided in South Australia for at least 1 year during a period of study, and must have continuously resided in South Australia post-course completion. On the other hand, high-performing graduates of South Australia must submit a registration of interest for another type of visa, which is the Talent and Innovators Program. So, in summary, for you to be able to apply for 491, the requirements are must have studied for a minimum of 46 CRICOS weeks, that's 1 year, a minimum of 50% of qualification completed in South Australia, and have resided for at least 1 year during the period, and continuously residing post-course completion. So after finishing your studies, you must have been living in South Australia. Now, what about Western Australia? Now, their graduate stream, the requirements must have completed at least 2 years full-time study in Western Australia, comprising of Certificate 3 or higher, and that includes English courses. Must have at least 6 months of paid Australian work experience in the nominated or closely related occupation over the past 5 years, or a contract of employment for full-time employment in Western Australia for at least 6 months in the nominated or closely related occupation. So, these are the requirements for Western Australia for 491 visa application under the graduate stream. 2 years studies, and must have worked for at least 6 months over the past 5 years, or contract of employment for at least 6 months. So take note of the word "or" there. So you may either you have work experience for at least 6 months, or you have a contract of employment for full time for at least 6 months. And the occupation list, you can see it here. Now, what about Victoria? To be eligible for nomination, the requirements for Victoria are must have submitted a registration of interest, live and work in regional Victoria. The work must be in the Victorian target sector using your STEM skills. We will discuss this later. You must be under 45, has competent English, have a valid skills assessment, and have achieved a minimum point score. At present, the Victorian government waived the work experience requirement. So, provided that you have an employer, then you can apply for the 491 visa. Before, the requirement is you must have worked for at least 3 months for 491. Now, they have removed that. Now, what are the areas or the target sectors? Areas: health, medical research, life sciences, digital, agri-food, advanced manufacturing, new energy, emissions reductions, and circular economy. So these are the field of studies or occupation that you must be for you to be able to apply for the 491 visa in Victoria. Now, lastly, what about Tasmania? Tasmania, I have made a separate information session about this, and take note that international students in Tasmania can apply for 190 or 491. But only high caliber applicants will be nominated for the 190 visa. Now, for graduates, students enrolled before June 2021 must have an occupation on the STSOL or the MLTSSOL. This is the short occupation list, and this is the medium long-term strategic list. And the minimum requirements is the student must have completed a 40-week CRICOS diploma or trade for 491. For students enrolled after June 2021, occupation may be on the short-term or the medium to long-term list and must have completed at least 40 weeks. And if it's not a diploma course, it must be in a field of a priority industry training and workforce development areas list. So I have made a separate video about what constitutes priority industry training and workforce development areas list. So working in Tasmania, this is not the same with the international students team. Any occupation on the short term or the medium to long term list, and working in any skilled occupation full time for 6 months. And for small business owners, they must have been operating a business for at least 6 months and be able to demonstrate that will earn at least on the basis of the business plan that is required. So I think that's all for now. I have given you the 491 requirements, particularly in the international student or the graduate stream for Northern Territory, South Australia, Western Australia, Victoria, and Tasmania. So again, 491 visa is a skilled regional visa, and this is for 5 years. And after living, working, and studying in regional area for at least 3 years and meeting the annual income requirement, then you will be eligible for the 191 visa. This visa is new. It superseded 489 visa last November 2019. And the 191 visa has not yet started. So that's all for now. Thank you for watching today's information session, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
One of the best feelings in life is having moments with the ones you love, even if you're far away from each other. Despite being 1,000 miles apart, our feelings haven't changed. Being beside you is a wish that I've long desired. With professional help, the long wait is over. Bridge the gap with Aussie Migration and Visa Professional Solutions. You can study, work, or live in Australia. With the help of our experts, you can fix your migration and visa application efficiently. Now, love doesn't have to be distant. Call us now.